Communities like the Hawkesbury, northwest of Sydney, have been hit by a number of floods in the last 2 years. I'm joined now by Sam Magnuson, who's a local resident and community spokesperson. Sam Magnuson, thanks for your time. This is the news you expected but probably dreaded.
Yes, that's right, Katrina. We knew it was coming, but yes, the confirmation is particularly unsettling. The conditions in the Hawkesbury could not be worse, as you accurately described in your weather forecast. The soils are wet, the dams are full, the land and infrastructure is severely compromised out here, and it won't take much rain for a major flood. More than that, and it will be a catastrophe out here. Yeah, we could be facing a flood of historic proportions, which will place many lives at risk.
Is that what you're expecting this summer?
Yes, we are. As I said, we're coming off the back of 3 major floods in 18 months. That is historic in itself. And the combination of the Indian Ocean dipole and La Nina is just a disaster for this area.
How is the community preparing?
Look, I think it's fair to say the community largely is underprepared. We haven't really had much, advice from the local council or the state government for people who have particularly never been flooded before. As I said, the last floods, the biggest flood was just over 14 metres. The one we're looking at now, a lot of people are talking 16, 17 metres. Now, there are people at that level who have never, ever been flooded before. And I think it's fair to say that the community is largely very underprepared.
How structurally sound is the land there? After the last round of floods, we saw what looked like sinkholes appearing on properties surrounding the Hawkesbury.
Yeah, that's right. We've got sinkholes all the way down the river, and they didn't just occur during the flooding. They're occurring now because the land is so wet and is so structurally unsound. We need the state government to urgently start releasing or putting the mechanisms in place. There are a number of bureaucratic mechanisms they need to put in place so that they can start letting water out of the dam by overall 12 metres. But we need 5 metres immediately, and then we need the rest released once we have more accurate and shorter term weather forecasting. But at the moment, we've been told the state government won't be releasing water, and they have really just left us here on our own. Which is just terrible. There is absolutely nothing that is being done to mitigate the very serious risk of a catastrophic flood out here.
What kind of community outreach is taking place? How have those approaches to state government and various authorities gone? Are you hoping that they will listen now that this official declaration has come through?
Well, you'd hope so. I mean, it's just so crazy. We've got 170,000 people living here on the floodplain, and if it's not their businesses that will be shut down because they'll be cut off, if it's not their businesses that will be lost because they'll be flooded, many have already shut down. If it's not, people and their, whose houses will be flooded, or people whose lives will be put at risk. There hasn't been. The Premier and the Water Minister haven't even visited the Hawkesbury since the last flood or any of the last 3 floods. Now, that's really disappointing. There are people out here who can't rebuild, and, the community has really had to take the action in their own hands. They've had to, lobby their state representatives, their local council members to try and get some action, but there hasn't been. And if this isn't the strongest signal we've got, that things are just going to be so terrible out here and something needs to be done urgently. I don't know what else they need from us to impress the urgency that this situation really is.
We're just seeing some of the pictures of that flooding and the subsequent erosion from earlier this year from the latest flood disaster. What damage are people still dealing with and cleaning up?
Well, a lot of people out here are actually trying to go through a very time-consuming and expensive DA process to remediate their land, which is, as you've seen with the sinkholes, it's just falling into the river. And they're sort of stuck between this situation whereby they have to wait through this long DA process, by which time a flood will have come and washed that land away anyway. So if they do something now themselves, they're at risk of huge fines. Now, after I think it was the 2021 flood, the state government promised to speed up that process so that people could fix their land before the next flood, and nothing's been done. So they're still sitting here waiting, having to weigh up that option. Do they do it illegally, or do they wait for the DA process? Now, I know what I'd do, but, it puts people in a pretty terrible position.
Yeah, a very difficult position indeed. On a personal level, how have you been affected by the floods?
Well, we've been flooded 3 times in the last 18 months, 4 times, sorry, in the last 18 months. But we are in no way the worst affected. There are people who have had, water, sort of up to the top of their doors. There are people who have had acres of land washed away. There have been people whose land has been lying underwater for months and months on end, sterilising the land so that it's been rendered useless for farming. There's an area in the Richmond lowlands where most of the stock, cattle and horses, have been removed because the land is so compromised. You've got ski park businesses down the river who have just shut shop. You have vegetable farmers out here who have just shut down. It's it's been pretty devastating for the local economy here, and people really can't last that much longer. They need to have something done so that the next flood isn't as damaging as we all think it's going to be.
Let's hope some preparations can be put in place. Magnuson, thank you so much for your time.
All right, thank you.